Okay, so this is the midterm review. It says using the following conditional statements, determine the inverse, converse, and contrapositives. So if it is an isosceles triangle, then it has two congruent side lengths. So the first part, before it says then, is going to be P. The second part is going to be Q, because this is the conditional statement that's given. So when you're talking about the inverse is not switching the statement. All it's doing is negating the statement. So it's saying not P, then not Q. So I'm basically negating the sentence. I'm making it negative. So I'm going to say something along the lines of, if it is not an isosceles triangle, and I'm going to shorthand this a little bit, then it doesn't have two congruent side lengths, or then it does not have two congruent side lengths. And instead of writing out congruent, I use the congruency symbol. So that would be something along the statement that they would use. The converse is switching or flipping the sentence. So it's putting Q first and then P. So it's literally taking my sentence and it's flipping the meaning. So instead of this being in the back, it's going to be in the front. This part in the front will be in the back. So I'll say, if it has two congruent sides, then it is an isosceles triangle. The contrapositive is not only flipping the statement, but also negating the statement. So I'm looking at my original, I'm making it negative, and I'm putting this in the front. This part I'm making negative, and I'm putting that part in the back. So if it doesn't have two congruent sides, then it is not an isosceles triangle. The next one, same thing. If a figure is a square, then it is a rectangle. So the first part's P, the second part's Q, because that's the conditional. The inverse is making the original statement negative, so keeping the same placement. So if it is not a square, then it is not a rectangle. The converse is flipping the sentence, Q to P. If it is a rectangle, then it is a square. The contrapositive is flipping the sentence and making them negative. So not Q, not P. Both of the C's, converse and contrapositive, have Q first. P is in the back. If it is not rectangle, then it is not a square. Okay, moving on to the next things. The next things we talked about during this chapter, which was like right before cycle 1, is constructions. So this is when we used the compass in class to create images. So you just have to be able to recognize what they're trying to make. Because this just has a segment and there's nothing else, determine the type of construction being shown. This is going to be something with a segment. There is no angle involved at all. So we have two options. We have copy of a segment and we have perpendicular bisector, technically of a segment. So these two things have to do with segments. This is not splitting the angle perfectly in half. This is copying a segment. This, notice, this has two segments. It's creating an angle. So it's either an angle or it's an angle bisector. Bisector is when it's splitting it in the middle. and that is not what's going on. This would be copy of an angle. This one, determine the type of construction shown. Notice I have a segment and I have two arc marks below and above. This is where we would take our pencil and we would connect them, creating a perpendicular bisector of the segment. So it's splitting the segment in half, and you would draw a line to cut them in half and creating a 90-degree angle. So perpendicular bisector of a segment, because there's no angles involved. This is the copy of an angle bisector. I still have my angle, so you have a 50-50 chance, something with an angle. And then notice you have arc marks out front, because what we would do next is connect point B to our arc marks, and then it would split these two angles into congruent pieces. So this is copy of an angle bisector. For the next one, it says determine the first step. They can only ask you the first step or what's actually being constructed for construction. So the first step to copy constructing JK as a copy of segment AB. So you're trying to make a copy of this segment. The first thing that you would have to do is, and I'll get out my perpendicular or my thing, I would draw a point, and then I would have to make a line, because I would draw a line going out this point. Because it says constructing JK as a copy of AB, I would not call this A prime. I would use the letter that they're telling me to, which is J. Then this is when I would open up my needle to the point, and I would draw an arc mark, and then I would drag it over here and draw an arc mark. That would not be B prime, this would be K prime. So the very first step that I actually took, you have different options. Draw a ray labeling one point A or B, draw a ray labeling one point J or K, plot 2 points, J and K, and draw a ray through them. This would not measure the distance if I did that. Plot 2 points, A and B, and draw. That'd be like me drawing a point here and connecting it and calling it a day. I can't do that. So the correct answer is B. Copying the angle, the first thing I'd have to do is draw a ray, meaning this goes on forever. I don't know the length. So it's J and then draw a line. For 8, the first step in constructing a angle B as a copy of angle A. So if this is angle A, the first thing I would have to do is draw a point.
Good afternoon, Packers. We're gonna start.
And I would draw a ray, some line.
We're gonna serve mac and cheese, broccoli, fruit, and
put my compass on A,
remember,
and I would make an arc going through both angles. I could bring it over here, draw an arc going through. I don't know where it's going to end up. And then I'm going to measure this opening. And then I'm going to close this, create an arc mark, and then drag it over here. Create an arc mark. Where they cross at right here, oh, the lights went off. I would connect these, and that would create the copy of an angle, angle B. So the first step I actually did was draw a ray labeling one end, not with point A, but with point B, because they told me specifically I'm making B. I cannot just draw 2 connecting rays and label it together, because that could be an obtuse angle. It could be a very acute angle. I can't just pick, I'd have to measure that opening. On the back side is 3-dimensional shapes. So I'm only going to go through and do one of each of these shapes instead of every single problem. But the answer key to this will be posted on Focus, so you can go back and complete them and then check all of the answers. So we're going to use the pi button, and we're going to round to the nearest hundredth if needed. So when you're talking about volume of a cylinder, this formula that's on your blue sheet is big B times H. So if I look at the blue sheet that you're going to be given on the EOC, if I look at cylinder, because that's the shape, I want volume, which is big B H. And if you look here, the key, big B says the area of the base. Well, if I'm talking about a cylinder like a can of Coke, the base is technically a circle. So I'm going to have to replace that formula for area and plug it into my cylinder formula because it's the area of a circle. So instead of using big B, I'm going to replace big B with pi r squared times h, because that's how you find area. Big B is the area of the base. The base is a circle. Even though it's at the top, it's the same at the bottom. So I'm going to do pi multiplied by my radius, which is 2, multiplied by the height of the overall figure. So you can do this all in the calculator at one time. I don't like using dots for multiplication when I have decimals because then it looks like it's just all multiplying together. So if I clear up calculator, I'm going to do I'm going to do the exponents first. 2 to the power of 2 is 4. 4 times 5.3 is 21.2. So I'll write out a step, I guess, if you need me to. 5.3. And then I'm multiplying that by pi. My pi button is down here, exp. Notice pi pops up, so I have to press equals. So this is around 66.60 centimeters cubed, because volume technically has cube units. When you do number 10, make sure you are careful because they give you the diameter, which is the whole length of 7. So your radius that you're actually going to use is 3.5 because it's half the distance. For a sphere, volume of a sphere, which is a 3-dimensional circle, if I look on my reference sheet, I have spheres right here. I have surface area and I have volume. We're dealing with volume, 4/3 pi r cubed. So my radius is only half from the center out, which is 3. So I'm doing 4/3 pi 3 to the 3rd power. So I can do this all in the calculator at once. So I'm going to do 3 to the power of 3. I'm going to multiply by pi. I can multiply by the numerator, which is 4, and then divide by 3 in the end. So I get around 113.10 feet cubed. Because this is 0.97, so the 9 would round to make 10. Same thing for this one, be careful, this gives you the diameter. The radius would be 6 that you're using, not 12. For these 3 problems, these are surface area of a square, a right square pyramid. So if I look on my pyramid section, and I am finding the surface area, not the volume. So you got to make sure you're careful. So I have a pyramid. I can use 2 formulas. I can use this one or this one. They both look exactly the same. The only thing that's different is L or HS in the end. But if you look in your key, L and HS are both the slant height. So it does not matter which one you use. I like to use HS because it literally means slant height and it's easier for you to remember. So I'm going to write down the formula first. So surface area means the area around the outside. I'm going to do big B plus 1/2 P HS. Okay, so when we do this, big B, same thing, is the area of the base. This is a square. The base is a square. The bottom of it is a square, which is 8 on each side. So when you're finding area of a square, you're doing length times width. So big B is 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. So that's what I'm going to use in for big B, because I found the area of the base. The bottom of the shape is 64 for the area. So I'm doing 64 plus 1/2. And then I have P, which is the perimeter of the base. So I have the perimeter of the base, same thing. I have the same shape. For perimeter, I have adding up the sides. So I'm doing 8 plus 8 plus 8, or 8 times 4, whichever way you want to do it, which makes 32. So P is 32. And then I have my slant height. My slant height is 16. So in a calculator, I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to do 16 times 32 times 1/2. Oops. 64 plus 256. And I'm going to add it to 64. So 320 feet squared because it's area. So that is the same for 14 and 15. I'm going to go to number, I don't know. I guess I'll go to 17 just so I stay on this side, but 16, 17, and 18 are all the same type of problem. I'll just go to 17 so I'm on the left. So it says determine the surface area, then determine the cost to paint the cylinder. I forgot the cost. I'm gonna have to reprint these. Determine the cost to paint the cylinder. And I'll say if it is, I don't know, $3.99 per square yard. Oh no. And I'll use that same price for all of these, I guess. If it is $3.99 per square yard. Okay, same thing. Okay, so we are going to find this surface area of a cylinder. So same thing, if I look at my formula sheet, I have a cylinder. This time I'm using surface area. 2B, big B is the area of the base, plus P, which is the perimeter, remember, perimeter of the base, plus or multiplied by the height, which is H. So I'll write my formula down. Surface area equals 2 big B plus P H. So if I'm talking about the base, let's talk about the base first. For big B, this is the area of a circle because the base of it is a circle. So to find that is pi r squared. Same thing, let's find P off to the side. P is the perimeter of the base, which is a circle. So it's a circle. So this is area, pi r squared. Perimeter is circumference, is 2 pi r. Circumference finds the distance around a circle. So my radius is 6. So I'm doing pi times 6 to the power of 2, which is 36 pi. 36 times pi is around 113.10. This one, 2 pi times my radius is 6. So I'm doing 6 times pi times 2. So my perimeter is about 37 point, we'll say 70. Okay, so I found big B, I found the P, so I'm going to plug it in. So I'm doing 2 times big B, which is 113.0, plus the perimeter, which is P, 37.70, times the height, which is 12. So if I simplify, 2 times 113.10 is 226.20 plus 37.70 times 12 is 452.40. I'm going to add them together. 226.20 is 678.60. And now, so this is the surface area. If I need to find the cost to paint the cylinder, I'm going to multiply that by the cost per square yard, which is $3.99. So in a calculator, I'm going to just multiply by 3.99. So $2,707.61. And then once again, I will post all of the answer keys onto Focus so that we can check all of the rest of the answers.